Hey guys, FilthyRobot here, bringing you another guides, tips, and tricks video. This time we're asking the question, how good is Spain? So let's dive right into it. Take a look at the bonuses here. Oh, he's got a lovely face, Spain. So we have that going for him. That's a primary bonus, I'd say. The first of these, Inquisitors can remove heresy one extra time. Combat units have a bonus of +4 combat strength against units following other religions. This is interesting. I don't think either of these are good bonuses, by the way. I think these are interesting bonuses, but not particularly good. Inquisitors can remove an extra heresy one extra time. I don't think that's useful at all. At least none of the theological combat I've had has that been a problem. I suppose this would be useful if someone has been actively taking over your cities with their religion before you founded a religion and were therefore unable to fight it, or perhaps if you were trying to purchase their buildings and now want to use an Inquisitor to remove this stuff after you've got their faith buildings. But in general, you tend to fight theological combat by having a standing army of apostles ready to kill other apostles that approach you. So that portion doesn't seem all that great to me. It does synergize quite nicely with their Conquistador land unit a little bit later. We can talk about that in a while. But having an extra charge on these guys means you can use them one extra time before they're going to disappear. And if you use them, and for Spain, you don't actually want to use up your apostles or your missionaries if possible, because you want to save them for some specific combo stuff a little bit later. So having extra charges means you get more use out of them while still being able to keep them around, which is fairly useful for Spain. So that's an interesting synergetic bonus, that first one. I kind of like it, but it doesn't seem particularly strong to me. I haven't seen much of a use for Inquisitors. The downside of Inquisitors is you have to unlock their usage, first of all, by actually using an apostle, by using an entire apostle to unlock the Inquisition, or whatever it's called, exactly how it works. I can't remember the name of it, but it's going to cost you one extra apostle, which is more faith you have to spend before you're even able to build Inquisitors. So I'm not sure that's all that great as a whole. Combat units have a bonus of 4 against combat strength against players following other religions. That is really nice. To have a combat bonus, which is great if you can get that to apply. 4 isn't that small of a combat bonus. I think I'm starting to see 10 as a meaningful combat bonus, with 5 being not unmeaningful but not quite as relevant, and 4 starting to be on the low end of that. So it's not a huge combat bonus, but it is a passive combat bonus that you'll get all of the time when you're fighting a player against who has another religion. The problem is I'm not actually sure what constitutes another religion here. I think if they've founded a religion, you get that bonus, and I think you get that bonus all of the time. I'm not sure if they have a majority of their cities following another religion. That may or may not do it. If they're not the founder, but someone else has converted their lands, perhaps that gives you a bonus. But if they have no religion, that gives them, or they have your religion, which is, if there is likely the scenario that's going to occur, you get no bonus whatsoever. Especially versus players right now, religions are fairly low priority. There doesn't seem to be a lot of impact that religion is doing for the game. Sometimes faith has an impact, but not religion in of itself all that much right now. So religions are not heavily prioritized, which means that you may not have bothered to prioritize religion, even as Spain, and your opponent may not have bothered to prioritize religion. And when you actually go to war, you may not be getting much of this benefit at all, because it just may not be something that either of you guys bothered to invest in. And perhaps another scenario that arises is you are Spain, you were thinking about these religious bonuses, you decided to invest in a religion, but your opponent just didn't bother, in which case you get no bonuses at all for that, and this is an inconsequential bonus entirely. So kind of highly situational in a way that you can't control, again, because it requires your opponents to be acting one way, and then you also have to either get lucky enough to found a religion or have invested the resources and be wanting to war them, and the size of the bonus may not be large enough to care that much in terms of investment of resources for that. However, when it does trigger, it's quite nice. Treasure fleets. You may build fleets and armadas earlier than usual at mercantilism. I actually like fleets and armadas. Not so much. I actually prefer corps and armies, which are the land-based equivalents of it, but I think being able to put stronger units on tiles is a really powerful ability. So I think that's probably less true in the Navy stuff, because there's more tiles, essentially all the water is basically open terrain, right? So for a large part, when you're fighting along the coast, it's like fighting on a giant flat plain on lands. So there already are a lot more tiles on that battlefield than there are most of the time on the land-based battlefields. So it's a little bit less important to be able to centralize those the firing tiles. I mean, this is basically armies and armadas. Basically corps, armies, fleets, and armadas are basically ways of getting around the one unit per tile restriction that has been implemented in both Civ 5 and Civ 6. It allows you to essentially get a slightly stronger unit on a tile by combining units that otherwise wouldn't be seeing much play. So if you have a bunch of units in a clump and most of them in the back can't do anything because they're just not in range to do anything, now you can combine them into one super unit that now can stand on that tile and actually see some action. So I like that as a mechanic. I think it is a way to incentivize having high production, higher production than your opponent. Now you can bring more force to bear on his tiles and he can bring on his tiles to defend them because you have more units to create into these stronger units. I like that mechanic. I just don't think it's as useful at sea as it is on land. So that bonus, so-so. If we find that the limiting factor is going to be number of units that can shoot from a position at sea, then that might be good. This may be good, for example, for attacking other cities on the coast where there's not going to be all that many tiles that can attack the city, especially if they've founded 1 or 2 tiles away from the coast, which means that, you know, you're only going to get 1 or 2 cities shoot, actually probably only 1 unit that can shoot that city at all. Therefore, a fleet or armada is going to be useful for bringing down a city, but still maybe not all that impactful of a bonus. Trade routes between multiple continents, receive a gold bonus for routes with other civs and a bonus to food and production from routes between your own cities. I wish it said the magnitude of this bonus on the actual tooltip. My testing that I've done shows this to be 1 food and 1 production internally when you're sending trade routes between cities on different continents. That sucks. That's really just not that much. Again, this runs into the same problem that Victoria runs into. You're not settling different continents because you want to settle different continents. You just don't have that luxury. You settle cities where you can settle cities, and in the best locations you can settle cities. If the continent dividers are essentially random relative to your start location, which most of the time they are, especially if you're playing on a Pangea map, then you sometimes will settle cities in other continents based on your spawn location and where you want to settle the city, but it's not because it's on another continent, and it isn't worth doing that. For the bonus of only 1 food and 1 production for settling on a different continent, it certainly is not worth changing the entire positioning of your cities. Imagine it was 10 food and 10 production. Then it might be worth going out of your way to settle a less good city because it was on a different continent just to get that bonus, but at the moment for 1 food and 1 production, it really isn't. It becomes a situational bonus that is outside of your control and is relatively small bonus anyways, which means it's 99% of the time inconsequential to any outcome in the game. So, all right, it's cool that we have it, but it's better than nothing, but it isn't much better than nothing, and it's not better than having a different ability that was better in that position. So not much use out of Treasure Fleet either, in my opinion. The Conquistador may be one of the redeeming features of Spain in my eyes, and even then it's not that much of a redeeming feature, and that is because the Conquistador is a gunpowder replacement unit here. It replaces the musketman, and let's take a look. Combat strength 55. Oops, wrong thing. Let's go back to the musketman. Musketman is also 55. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Production cost 480. Let's take a look at the Conquistador. Also 500. Conquistadors. What? More expensive? Seriously? Lol. All right. So it's not stronger, but it costs more. The benefit that the musketman gets is it gets 10 combat strength when there's a missionary, inquisitor, or apostle in the same hex, and if the Conquistador captures a city, then or is adjacent to a city when it's captured, the city will automatically adopt the Conquistador player's religion as a dominant religion. All right, that's a nice little weird situational thing that will be kind of neat the 2 times that you played Civilization 6 when you actually triggered that, and will be inconsequential 99.9% of the time when you're actually winning a war. So we don't really care about that second part, it just doesn't matter. The part that I do care about is the plus 10 combat strength when there's a missionary, inquisitor, apostle in the same hex, because finally, for Spain, this is a bonus I can actually control. It's not based on whether or not my opponent has a religion. It's not based on whether or not my opponent is on a continent or not on a continent, or if my cities are settled near a continent or adjacent to a continent, or whatever else it happens to be, some random friggin' just strange requirement. All this requires is that I have an apostle, missionary, or inquisitor that I have put in the same hex as him. And finally, it's a bonus I can control. 10 combat bonus is not inconsequential. We've talked about a couple times in the last few videos, and I think we've talked about it already in this video. 10 is a decent sized combat strength, so getting a military unit with 10 combat strength isn't too bad. Unfortunately, it is of course a melee unit, and you guys know what I think about melee units by now. Melee units as a whole are fairly weak, and getting a stronger melee unit is great, but it's not all that great. So what do I think of the Conquistador? I had some fun with it, playing some multiplayer games. I rushed Conquistadors, got them fairly early, grabbed a religion. I think my opponent had a religion, so I was getting plus 14 combat strength versus him. And I might have even had something like, I can't remember if I might have had another religious bonus in there. I might have had Defender of the Faith or something, so I had another 10 on top of that. But basically, my Conquistadors, and I had promoted them with anti-range promotions, the Tortoise promotions, so they were tanky as all hell, and they were very, very hard to kill. I don't think I actually succeeded in that war as it happened, but they were fun to play around with because they were so damn tanky. But I don't actually know that they're going to be all that impactful, because again, it is a blocker melee unit, and blocker melee units just seem to be not so good as the horse and ranged units that are available in the game already. So I call it the redeeming feature, but that might be a bit of an exaggeration. It may not be all that redeeming at all. So fun to play with. I liked stacking the bonuses. I do get a lot of enjoyment out of stacking lots of bonuses on a single unit. That was quite nice, but perhaps not all that useful after all. And then finally we have the mission, which is their unique tile improvement. Let's take a look at what the mission does exactly, particularly the text it's available at. It is available at the Civic Exploration. Where is the Civic Exploration? That is somewhere. What? Let's find it. Yep, that's what I want. Oh wow, it's so late in the game too. Okay, that makes it even worse than I thought it was. All right, exploration being, you know, in the early Renaissance era when you're going for Merchant. To be fair, Merchant Republic is a pretty great government system. So you do tend to prioritize getting exploration as a tech. That's nice. And I guess if you're looking at synergies, Spain is going to have, I believe, a coastal bias. So you're going to have some interest. You might actually be able to build 2 caravels, which so often I'm unable to do on Pangea style maps. And it does unlock the mission. The mission is a pile of crap. What it does is it gives you 1 faith, and 1 faith just for building it on a tile, and that costs a builder charge, and it also costs, you can't put another improvement on that tile. So if you built the mission, that's the improvement for that tile. And plus 1 faith at such a late stage in the game is nearly meaningless. It does almost nothing whatsoever. But it gains plus 2 faith if on a different continent than your capital. Again, maybe starting, I assume those are cumulative. I assume this is actually 3 faith total. If that happens, that might start to be useful if you could get a lot of them. So maybe if you get lucky in your spawn locations and you have some sort of you know, multi-continent bonus, that multi-continent empire, maybe you could get some utility out of that. Maybe if you're also going faith-based, but then if you're going faith-based, you're probably going to do something with Reformed Church. And if you're going Reformed Church, why are you teching exploration at all? All right, and it gets plus 1 science if it's built next to a campus district. Science is a much more valuable yield than faith, in my opinion. And he gets plus 2 science at cultural heritage. So what do I think of the mission? I think the mission's fairly rubbish. I think most of the time you're not going to want to build these, and the few times you do are going to be extremely situational. And even when you do build them in those extremely situational positions, it's not going to be very strong whatsoever when you do that. So yeah, overall, this may be one of the contenders for the worst Civ in the game. I don't think it is the worst Civ in the game. I think maybe Norway has them beat, but it's pretty damn bad, with almost no redeeming features whatsoever. So you can still have fun with Spain if you find a way to maybe certainly versus the AI is going to be more fun because you're much more likely to have opposing religions with the AI. And if you're setting a naval map and playing against the AI in particular, maybe it could be a little bit more fun for that as well. Maybe you could do some sort of conquistador based religious victory. But as a whole, I just feel like these bonuses are too weak to make this a competitive Civ whatsoever. I think this is going to be one of the last picks in most of the games that we play. In other words, I don't think many people will be playing Spain whatsoever. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube or come follow me on Twitch. Check out the rest of my content, both on Twitch and here on YouTube. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Filthy out.